Welcome back to Checkpoint. Thanks for staying with us. Inspector Fisi, please give us your comments on that. The hashtag is KTN News. Sorry, the Twitter handle is at KTN News, at Yvonne Okwara and at John Allan Namu. So good to have you with us.
Good to be back.
It's good to have you, yes, I know.
Almost like old times.
Yes, huh? Yes, indeed. Yeah, we should have color-coded our clothing and decided what we're going to wear. But this was a personal piece. And before we even get to the personal bit of it, it's about victimless corruption, because most of us say, oh, well, you know, nobody gets hurt in the process. He who solicits a bribe, he who gives a bribe. But that was the point of this specific episode, yes, that it does have consequences. Yeah,
and I think we need to start thinking about corruption in that way and how it affects you personally. I think one of the things that we had been accused of as a media is that we throw out these very big figures of this scandal, 750, 850 million stolen and this and this and this, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's not really tangible to the person who is at the sharp end of this problem. Like, for instance, with this episode, I mean, with the kind of death that you see on our road, 11% of all of the deaths on our road in road accidents are attributed to matatus. So, I mean, these are people who are breadwinners, who are brothers, sisters, children, who've lost lives, and there are people across the country who are hurting. I mean, I chose Auntie Frida because to me that was a very personal story. Yeah. But I can imagine that there are many, many Kenyans across the country who feel just the same.
Absolutely.
But we must start seeing corruption as that thing inside your home that is causing you all of this pain, that is causing you all of this trouble. And then we can start to fight it that way.
Let's speak about, you know, this form of storytelling, because this is, you know, markedly different, you know, from the way in which we've seen you tell stories before. And this is... I know you can't reveal, you know, the identities of the people who are filming this, but this is as close as it gets, right, to the story, to the corruption, to the people that are doing this.
Yeah, and I think the whole ethos behind doing stories like these in collaboration with the guys at Huyo, first of all, shout out, and the people who record this on the ground, the ethos behind it is to show Kenyans that if you are in front of a problem, if you see it happening every day, then you have a role in being able to stop it. And you are just as powerful as the person who sits behind a dock as a judge or as a police officer who interacts with this corruption and has a role in arresting it. We all have these roles to play. And it's testament to the fact that these things can happen with just regular people.
Yeah.
Especially at a time when there's so much political inertia around fighting corruption at that level. The example has to come from somewhere, and it might as well be from regular Kenyans like you and I.
Yeah, and we'll talk about, you know, what happens at the top in a moment, but, you know, just a powerful thing you say about it starting, you know, here at our level. But let's talk about one of the cops that you showed in that picture. I mean, in plain clothes, you would hardly think he's collecting bribes. He looks like any regular passenger, doesn't he?
Exactly.
I mean, the tactics have changed, right? Because, you know, when you see a guy in blue uniform, you can easily take a look at his number and, you know, go and report that. But this is interesting.
It's impunity at another level, because if you have plainclothes police officers playing, you know, first of all, they're not supposed to be involved in traffic in any way, you know. Plainclothes police officers mostly would either come from the CID or some investigative area, or even if they're beat cops, they're doing something around the arresting of crime. What that shows you is the level of impunity with which taking of bribes has reached. So even if we were to expose the entire chain of where the money goes, what happens on the ground with people like that shows you that there is no political will to fight corruption within the police force. There is no political will to fight corruption, especially within a symbol of the enforcement of the law. That can be very frustrating for a lot of Kenyans, but it just shows you that we really have to fix this problem. It's going to eat us up.
Any reaction from the police?
Well, we showed all of the footage that we have to the police, as you saw at the end of that clip. We showed it to the police spokesman, we got his comment. But in the running of this series, there has been no subsequent comment from the police. I don't sound pessimistic. I guess I'm not expecting any because they already gave us our comment and their comment.
Yeah.
And we'll be having that towards the end of the series. But it would be good to at least, you know, say that we are dealing with this issue. The people who have been exposed are going to be put through some sort of disciplinary process.
Yeah, because some would hope for some action, like what we saw with the last piece you had, Kanjo Kingdom, yeah? Yes. That led to, maybe you can just remind our viewers, you know, what the outcome of that was, without, you know, sort of seeming to preempt some sort of, or a specific type of reaction from the police.
Well, I mean, the people at the center of the story that we reported, there was 4 inspectorate officers. All of them have since been interdicted. 3 of them are facing charges in court. The director of that inspectorate has since been sacked. And so there are visible changes that have taken place. And again, it just shows you how important your role can be in exposing corruption. It might not be the route that this takes with the police. There are different strictures and different methods through which the police carry out the disciplinary processes. But the hope is that the people at the sharp end of this problem won't experience it the way they've been experiencing it. And the enforcement of the law begins in earnest. Not just, and I have to say this, because this is what happens. The police, especially the traffic police, weaponize the law so that even if you have a small offense, you have a cracked windshield or one of your tires is slightly run out or worn out, you have a taillight that you didn't know about, then it becomes this point of, you know, pressure. So you don't have this, the fine is 30,000, but, you know, you can pay 10,000.
Right.
You understand? And that insidious nature of corruption and the weaponizing of the law in that way is what keeps this alive. But more than that, it's the impunity with which they do it and the fact that there are no consequences.
Yeah. This is corruption at this level. I know we keep speaking about, you know, we did graft diaries, you know, even when you were here. We look at it, it always seems like it's over there. But this is corruption that we sort of interact with on a very personal level, on a day-to-day basis, when you're going to work in the morning, when you're going back home in the evening. But yet, is corruption then a big electoral issue? Is it? Should it be?
I don't think so.
Seeing as we interact with it at this, you know, very basic level.
I don't think so. And at 2 levels. I think we also have a role in, you know, pushing that as an issue, because for the past 4 years, you've mentioned graft diaries, those hustlers jet. There's been an entire parliamentary accounts committee that was dismissed because of corruption. And we know that members of parliament receive bribes. We know MCAs receive bribes. We know what's been happening over the past 4 years. This should be the central issue in this election, because it really is a battle for the soul of this country. Corruption isn't just about taking or receiving money. It's about the normalizing of a culture of impunity, and that culture of impunity starting to degrade our country to the status that one day it could happen that we become a banana republic. You know, we don't think of it that way, but if you have corruption in your home, if you meet it on the street, if you see it in government, then what kind of society do you live in? And I think that's why it should be a central issue. I don't think that especially the 2 main political alignments are taking it with that seriousness.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is going around. So what will it take? I mean, there's yourself and there's the people you work with, you know, at Huyo, who are, you know, really big on saying, you know, you see it, you expose it, and you stop it. But so what will it take for us to get, you know, so arrested, you know, excuse the pun, of this, because we're facing it every day, where, you know, we see the matatu conductors giving bribes to policemen. I mean, this is something we see. So what will it take for us to be seized of this matter and to start demanding answers? Who do we demand answers from? For example, with what we're seeing in the piece, Inspector Fisi. Whose door should we be knocking at?
Well, we should leave this squarely at a number of places. We should leave this at the door of the police. But we should also leave it with our legislators, who and this is my opinion, but I think it's also shared within the police. Our legislators over the past number of years have not enacted any serious law that would give the police the teeth, the power, or the backing to be able to fight corruption, right? They are, you remember what Asman Kamama said about the quality of our recruits, that they should be C- and below.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about the quality of the police officer that you want to be policing this country? This is a person who sees this as a job, you know, just like any other, one that he can get into and doesn't necessarily have to have the qualifications or even the determination to become a police officer. So that should be another area of responsibility. But Yvonne, let's be honest, political will starts at the top. And in part 4, we'll show you exactly what that means with a very succinct example from a place where it has worked that people can relate to as part of a solution of getting this going forward.
And you did speak, you know, to some candidates.
Yes.
You know, we've seen Peter Kenneth in there. I mean, what would be your, what needs to happen in Nairobi County, for example?
What needs to happen in Nairobi County is, well, a number of things. Aside from, you know, the reshuffling of police officers, the interdiction of police officers, IPOA and the National Police Service Commission taking a second look at some of the people who have been vetted, who are still on the streets, I think the leadership in the police force needs to be seized of this matter in a way that shows that there's real action that's going to take place. And another party needs to come to the table. The Matatu Owners Association, aside from just complaining about the corruption that they're exposed to, need to start fighting it and need to start inculcating a culture of zero tolerance for corruption. Now, they'll blame the traffic on it, as we showed in part 1. But everybody suffers from the problems of traffic in this city.
That's right.
We cannot continue to do that. And if traffic is a problem, you cannot, that can't be the solution to be corrupt to try and get around it.
Right,
And I think finally, in Nairobi at least, because this is where the problem is most acute, we as people who use the road, pedestrians, drivers, when we see this kind of impunity on our roads, we need to start filming it and exposing it. One great example is this. The people who are supposed to use chase cars in this country, the president, the deputy president,
ambulances,
and perhaps police rushing to an emergency.
And fire
but
trucks.
how many of those do you see every day with cabinet secretaries being rushed from one important meeting to another, right? With former members of government being rushed from one breakfast meeting to their lunch
And what do we
meeting
do about it?
and their tennis appointments. And what do we do about it? We just shuffle onto the side of the road. We need to start demanding this accountability from the people that we see breaking the law on a daily basis.
Okay, all right, interesting. Let's take a look at some of the feedback on that. At Tot Apollo says it's more of extortion than bribery. Gadara says corruption is the oil that lubricates the wheels of the extractive colonial state. Without it, that state could not survive. Cynthia Nyangesa says, so sad. Citizens need to be more vigilant. Call out those who are corrupt on the roads. Simon Peter Murimi says, we'll overlook pernicious effects of corruption till it wipes us out. This is impunity unseen before. Oh, my, and quite a number of your thoughts coming in. Please use the hashtag Inspector Fisi. I will be taking a look at more of these as we go. This is one. Sadly, right now, police reform is all about equipping them to be better oppressors. Okay, all right. So this is it. What are you going to do about it the next time you see corruption taking place on our roads? Will you be as brave as the people that send those out? Well, John Allan Namu is here and he'll be definitely taking a look at that. The NTSA is powerless because our traffic police are corrupt. NTSA is a toothless dog, says Moha Mogeni. That's at Mogen Mohammed. Part 4, that's the final series, airs on Wednesday. Yeah? Okay. So, interesting one. Solutions is what we'll be looking out for in that
Solutions.
one? Okay.
Solutions plus a bit more.
A bit
what
more.
What you've been seeing.
Gosh, if everything we've seen already isn't shocking enough, there's definitely more in the last and final episode of Inspector Fisi. That's airing on KTN News only. on Wednesday night. Thank you very much, John.
You're
to
welcome.
you, the team at Africa Uncensored, and at Huyo. Yeah. I mean, if you live here, you know where that comes from. Huyo. Yeah, that's how we'd call out thieves back in the day. All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And keep doing the good work. All right, that's John Allan Namu. He's the CEO of Africa Uncensored. Inspector Fisi, 4th and final episode next week, Wednesday. You're watching Checkpoint. We're taking a break. We have the day's sports news. My take is also coming up next. You don't want to miss that. See you then.
Is the art of leadership. It's not an ego game. Means responsibility. Means setting aside personal desires. Means service. Means loyalty.